The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under my door like a threat wrapped in official letterhead. I picked it up from the hardwood floor of my grandfather's house, my house now, and felt my coffee grow cold in my other hand as I read the words printed in aggressive bold type. Mandatory HOA enrollment notice. My name is Marcus Chen, and 3 months ago, I inherited the most beautiful property I'd ever seen. 2 acres of land with mature oak trees, a renovated 1920s craftsman home, and absolutely zero homeowners association fees. My grandfather had bought this land in 1968, long before the neighborhood of Willow Creek Estates had even existed. His property was grandfathered into independence, a fact he'd reminded the neighbors of regularly, and a freedom he protected fiercely until the day he died. I moved in immediately after the funeral, leaving behind my cramped apartment downtown. The peace was intoxicating. I'd wake up to birdsong instead of traffic, drink my morning coffee on a wraparound porch instead of fire escape, and fall asleep to the sound of wind through the oaks instead of sirens. For 3 perfect months, I lived in paradise. Then came the letter. Dear Mr. Chun, it began, as the new property owner of 1847, Willow Creek Road, you are hereby notified of your mandatory enrollment in the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, effective immediately. Your first quarterly payment of $850 is due within 30 days. $850. Quarterly. For a property that had never paid a cent to any HOA in its entire existence. I read the letter 3 times, my anger building with each pass. At the bottom, in smaller print, it listed newly established community standards that I would be required to follow: approved paint colors, lawn maintenance schedules, vehicle parking restrictions, and a bizarre rule about no vegetable gardens visible from the street. My grandfather's tomato plants, which I lovingly maintained, were apparently now contraband. The letter was signed by someone named Cynthia Whitmore, HOA president. I'd never heard of her. By that afternoon, I was sitting in my grandfather's study, now my study, with property deeds spread across the mahogany desk. My grandfather had been meticulous about documentation. Everything was in order, notarized, filed, and crystal clear. The property deed explicitly stated, not subject to homeowners association covenants or restrictions. There was even a survey map showing that my land predated the HOA's incorporation by 15 years. I took photos of everything, compiled them into a folder on my laptop, and drafted a polite but firm response letter. The next morning, I hand-delivered it to the address listed on the HOA letterhead, a large colonial-style house 3 streets over an immaculate lawn that looked like it had been cut with scissors. A woman in her mid-50s answered the door. She wore a white linen pantsuit despite the heat, and her blonde hair was styled into a helmet-like perfection that didn't move when she turned her head. "Can I help you?" she asked, her smile not reach her eyes. "Cynthia Whitmore?" "That's correct. I'm Marcus Chen. I received your letter about HOA enrollment." I handed her my folder. "I think there's been a mistake. My property isn't part of your HOA. Never has been." She didn't even look at the folder. "Oh, you must be Henry's grandson. I'm so sorry for your loss." Her voice dripped with synthetic sympathy. "However, we've updated our bylaws. The previous exemption was based on a grandfather clause that expired upon transfer of ownership." My jaw tightened. "That's not how property law works." "That's how our bylaws work, Mr. Chun." She finally took the folder, barely glancing at it before handing it back. "You'll find we're very thorough. We've consulted with attorneys. Everything is perfectly legal." "Then you consulted with bad attorneys," I said, keeping my voice level. "My deed supersedes your bylaws. I'm not paying." Her smile vanished like someone had flipped a switch. "Mr. Chun, I would strongly advise you to reconsider. We have ways of ensuring compliance. It would be unfortunate if you found yourself in violation of multiple community standards." "Is that a threat?" "It's a friendly warning." The smile returned, cold and sharp. "Welcome to the neighborhood." The violation started the next day. I found a first notice taped in my mailbox. Violation: vehicle parked in driveway exceeds approved dimensions. Fine $150. My truck, my perfectly normal 10-year-old pickup truck that had been parked in the same spot for 3 months. The second notice came that afternoon. Violation. Lawn exceeds maximum grass height of 2.5 inches. Fine $100. I'd mowed 3 days ago. By the end of the week, I had 7 violations totaling $1,200 in fines, including citations for unapproved garden structures, my grandfather's tomato cages, non-conforming mailbox color. It was black. Apparently it needed to be bronze. And my personal favorite, failure to display approved house numbers. Mine were brass. They wanted brushed nickel. Every single violation was fabricated, petty, and clearly designed to harass me into submission. I called a lawyer. Patricia Rodriguez was a property attorney who'd handled my grandfather's estate. She was in her 60s, spoke with the precise diction of someone who'd argued hundreds of cases, and didn't suffer fools. "They're doing what now?" she asked when I explained the situation. I showed her the pile of violation notices. She read through them, her expression darkening with each page. "Marcus, this is textbook harassment. Your property is explicitly exempt. They can't create bylaws that override recorded deeds. Can you make them stop?" "Oh, I could do better than that." She smiled, and it reminded me of a shark. "I can make them wish they'd never heard your name." Patricia filed an injunction and a harassment claim within 48 hours. She also requested an emergency hearing, citing the HOA's aggressive and legally baseless collection attempts. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. In the meantime, Cynthia escalated. I came home Monday evening to find a bright orange sticker plastered across my front door. Property condemned for HOA violations. She'd actually called a county inspector, claiming my house was structurally unsound and a neighborhood hazard. The inspector, a tired-looking man named Rodriguez, no relation to my attorney, unfortunately, showed up the next morning. He walked through my house, checked the foundation, tested the electrical, and examined the plumbing. "Your house is fine," he said flatly. "Actually, it's in better shape than most new construction I see." Who called this in? The HOA president. He sighed and removed the sticker. "She calls us twice a month with bogus complaints. We're required to investigate, but I'm noting in my report that this was a frivolous claim. You might want to consider filing a complaint yourself. My attorney's already on it." "Good. That woman's a menace." The hearing was held in a county administrative building, in a small courtroom that smelled like old coffee and would polish. Cynthia showed up with 2 other HOA board members and a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Patricia sat beside me, calm and prepared, with a banker's box full of documents at her feet. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Hendricks, listened to Cynthia's opening argument about community standards and property values with an expression of growing impatience. Then Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, the respondent's property has been legally exempt from this HOA since 1968. This exemption is recorded in the county deed and cannot be overridden by bylaw amendments." She placed a copy of my deed on the judge's bench. Furthermore, the HOA is engaged in systematic harassment of my client, including false code enforcement reports, fabricated violations, and collection attempts for fees he does not owe. She proceeded to present every violation notice, every threatening letter, and a timeline of the harassment that read like a stalking case. The judge's expression went from impatient to angry. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, her voice cutting to the courtroom like ice, "did you actually consult an attorney before attempting to forcibly enroll this property?" Cynthia's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we believed." "I'm asking Ms. Whitmore." Cynthia stood, her composure cracking. We thought that since ownership transferred." "You thought wrong." Judge Hendricks leaned forward. "Property deed exemptions don't expire with ownership transfer unless explicitly stated. This deed contains no such clause. What you've done here constitutes harassment, attempted fraud, and abuse of your position as HOA president." She ruled in my favor on every count. The HOA was ordered to cease all collection attempts, retract all violations, issue a formal written apology, and pay my legal fees. She also ordered an investigation into the HOA's practices and suggested the board consider new leadership. Cynthia's face went pale, then red, then pale again. 3 months later, I was back on my porch with my morning coffee, watching the sunrise paint my grandfather's oak trees in shades of gold and amber. Cynthia had resigned as HOA president. 2 other board members had followed. The new board president, a retired teacher named Mr. Williams, had personally delivered a handwritten apology and a plate of homemade cookies. My tomato plants were thriving. My truck remained parked in my driveway, and my mailbox stayed black. I'd learned something my grandfather already knew. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when you're defending your home. The HOA had tried to create rules overnight, tried to erase decades of legal protection with the stroke of a pen. They'd learned the hard way that property rights aren't suggestions. And as I sipped my coffee in the peaceful morning quiet, I silently thanked my grandfather for teaching me to stand my ground.